When we talk about the best Akatsuki member Kishimoto ever created, Konan is rarely brought up. She is rarely seen, barely fights, and is just remembered as the girl of the group while also being a Yahiko glazer. That's what I used to think. However, when we look closer, she's the most well-written female antagonist we've seen in Naruto. A kunoichi who can stand against Tobi and tried her best to be the light for the hopeless Amegakure. Konan isn't just the girl of the Akatsuki, she's the greatest Akatsuki member Kishimoto wrote, then pushed her aside, and I'll show you how. Cue my music. On the highway and I'm thinking that I love her. When compared to the other Akatsuki members, Konan can be seen as the most morally complex character out of all of them. And for us to begin to understand the underrated complexity of Konan's character, we have to reference the famous One Piece character Don Quixote do Flamingo. Children who've never known peace have different values than children who've never known war. Konan, alongside Nagato and Yahiko, were born during the Second Great Shinobi War in the land of Amegakure. Now, even though Kishimoto doesn't fully explain how it started and who the aggressors and defendants were, what's most important is the Hidden Rain village was the main battleground for this war. Since the larger villages who were actively at war and had country backing, that being the Hidden Leaf, Rock, and Sand villages, surrounded the smaller Amegakure, who was just an isolated village in the middle of these three. From there, many casualties in the Hidden Rain village occurred, destroying this village who had nothing to do with this war. All of the adult shinobi of Amegakure perished, leaving only their children to pick up the crumbs, which is where we see Konan, orphaned as her family was included of one of the many casualties of this war. And this is where Konan as an antagonist differs from most villains in Naruto. Look at characters like Sasuke and Shippuden, or even Neji in part 1. Many of these antagonists were usually shinobi who once had a stable life, then the shinobi world ruined them. And yes, you can say that for Konan as well. However, there is one fundamental difference. She was simply born into the brutality with no explanation, just tragedy and pain. What's most telling of this is when these three approached to thank the legendary Sannin, who showed compassion by giving them the rations, with Konan handing them an origami flower, in which Orochimaru wanted to mercy all three of them, as this was a much more fitting end than letting them suffer instead. Now, looking at Orochimaru, someone who had conducted a plethora of brutal experiments on many innocent subjects, who left Anko scarred and manipulated Sasuke into joining him, for this man to feel some sort of compassion for Konan and the others in this situation should let you know how horrible they had it. Although Jiraiya did take them in as students instead, still in the way he went about training them was way different compared to any standard Konoha shinobi. He wanted to prepare them for survival, teaching them skills that would help them instead of being a real military force. If you look at Konan, she functions more as an observer of all their philosophies, constantly assessing which one is the best for the future of Amegakure. Jiraiya, since he is a leaf ninja, it would make perfect sense that he would take on the Will of Fire philosophy, the belief that the previous generation has a duty to the next. Yahiko, wanting to create peace in the Hidden Rain village, he wanted to put an end to this turmoil and created the Akatsuki. And Nagato, who became something else entirely. Then there is Konan, the one in the middle of these three in their approach to handle this brutality of the ninja world. Instead of completely leaning into one, we see Konan consistently battling between each approach internally, not just because of the deep bond she has developed with them, but due to the fact they all have very reasonable approaches to a very long-winded issue, being war. This is where Konan, Yahiko, and Nagato, and all the Akatsuki all intersect at a conflicting point, because on the outside she is just an Akatsuki member doing her missions, but deep down she remembers how it all got messed up. During the early parts of the Akatsuki organization, Hanzo the Salamander, the leader of Amegakure and the man to dub Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru as the legendary Sannin, caught wind of the Akatsuki and its mission statement to bring peace to Amegakure and eventually the entire shinobi world without resorting to the cycle of hatred and violence. Initially welcomed Yahiko and the rest as comrades. However, by the influence of Danzo and Hanzo's increasing paranoia, captured Konan and made an ultimatum to Nagato and Yahiko for her life, in which Yahiko gladly gave his to protect his friend from Hanzo, as he believed Nagato was the child of prophecy. From here, Nagato took the reins as the newest leader of the Akatsuki, but instead of holding on to Yahiko's version of finding peace, with the influence of Madara, Nagato believes peace can only come through those who truly know what it's like to suffer. It took on a more bloody approach, recruiting wanted rogue ninja and acting as a mercenary group. All of this happening with Konan in the background as Nagato's descent occurred. And this is where we get the largest reason into why Konan doesn't get a lot of screen time when compared to members like Itachi or Hiden, who had nothing to do with his original founding. She hasn't forgotten the mission statement of Yahiko to bring peace to Amegakure. For the most part, she's in the Hidden Rain village, constantly looking over it. And in the Akatsuki Hiden novel, this gets revealed even more. It follows a flashback where Nagato has sent out Konan for intel on a potential informant. Throughout this mission, however, Konan becomes incredibly nostalgic as she comes across a white flower in the wilderness. This brought her back to the times before Yahiko's death and Nagato's descent into madness when they were still young. Visiting a village near the Land of Fire, Konan and the rest came across a flower vendor. As they were leaving, Yahiko Yahiko secretly noticed one flower had been damaged and was about to be thrown away. He convinced the seller to let him have it for free. Embarrassed, he presented the flower to Konan. He explained that it reminded him of the paper flower she always wore in her hair. Flowers almost never grew naturally in the land of rain, in which this white flower becomes the center motif of this entire short story, since the mysterious informant she was ordered to search out was using her flower sense as part of his genjutsu technique. Her sense of nostalgia and reminiscence on the old times was a byproduct of this genjutsu, and for her to win, she must discard the flower she came across while also using the flower Yahiko gave her years ago as a paper shuriken to defeat this informant. But a small moment in this story that can be seen as the entire thesis of Konan's Hiden part, she recalls Nagato's words before Yahiko's death and tells Konan cryptically, "A flower bears fruit sometimes." At the time, she did not understand what he meant, but now realizes that Nagato wanted a life where Konan and Yahiko had children and they all could have lived a happy life together. But now Konan is a flower that can't bear any fruit. What makes it so important is that it's a metaphor for Konan and how she fell from grace of her initial mission to create peace, but is now part of being the culprits of propagating mass destruction by trying to attain the goals of the Akatsuki, which puts her in the long line of fallen Amegakure ninja before her, Hanzo the Salamander, the leader of Amegakure, who was tired of other villages using the hidden rain as their battleground, created conflict to push the foreign shinobi out. However, over time, he became more paranoid and obsessed with retaining his power that he became the very evil he fought against. Nagato, after facing his own harsh tragedy under Hanzo, embodied that very evil in his own distortion for seeking worldwide peace. Konan has witnessed both of these two and their falls, as well as watching Jiraiya try and find his own answer for peace in the shinobi world. Not having the answer herself, she held on and slowly watched Nagato descend into madness, which is why her switch up after speaking with Naruto wasn't a talk no jutsu moment. It was Konan finding her shining light to becoming that flower again. Keep in mind, at this point, Nagato one of the few people who deeply loved Naruto, destroying the village he fought so hard to protect, as well as bringing despair to a plethora of his comrades. So for Naruto to hear Nagato out and wish for peace and forgiveness instead of searching for revenge, Konan not only was reminded of Yahiko through Naruto, but she understood he was the only one to bring her the answer to her lifelong question: how to bring peace to the shinobi world. Naruto refused to be brought down by the tragedy of the ninja world, but sought to become the light in the darkness. The Akatsuki, when translated from Japanese, means dawn or daybreak. Since it constantly rained in Amegakure, the rain symbolized the continual mourning for tragedy in the land of rain. The dawn or daybreak would be the new era of peace. So when Konan in her loss against Tobi looks up to the sky for the rain to finally stop with the sunshine showing, it was the symbolism of Konan finally seeking the new era of Amegakure taking place, and trusting Naruto with the task for the Akatsuki's real mission for finding peace. Also, another piece of symbolism is in her death, with one of the papers from her paper jutsu turning red and returning to her original hideout. In her time with Jiraiya created the security system where there would be 3 frog boards posted up, with one side being a frog representing they are outside the hideout, and red meaning they are inside the hideout, meaning that if someone came back and they did not turn the board to the red side, that was a sign of an impersonating intruder. And for Konan's bloodstained paper to return to the hideout and be the last board posted red is a symbolic metaphor for Konan finally returning to the place where Yahiko and Nagato are, maybe in the afterlife free from war. From the lack of fighting material that we see from Konan in the anime, most would underestimate her strength as a kunoichi in the Akatsuki. However, when we look deeper, she might actually be one of the strongest females in Naruto, and from that we can get further depth into her fight against Tobi. First, we have to talk about her jutsu style, paper release, Dance of the Shikigami, where she infuses chakra into paper and controls it as if it were an extension of her own body. She can also disperse her entire body into paper, manipulate it into weapons like shuriken or swords, also into wings, and can also harden the paper as well. From here, she kind of functions like a Logia type fruit user from One Piece. Elementals who can embody the element they have completely. In a moment of attack, she can turn what she can into paper and use it against her enemies, while turning into complete paper herself to evade the opponent's attack. Going back to when she handed a paper flower to the legendary Sannin, before being trained by Jiraiya or anything, it can show just how much natural talent she has with this jutsu type. We can theorize that it could be a lost Kekkei Genkai from the Land of Rain, since she didn't have any specific training at that point, and was able to use a highly skilled technique. Regardless, she has an undeniable talent for her jutsu type. According to the data books, she does possess water, earth, wind, and yang release chakra natures, showing that she is far more versatile in her jutsu. Also, using common sense, she found it and actively participated as an Akatsuki member, a group classified to only have S-class rogue shinobi, and is the sole reason for the 5 Kage summit was called again after many years. So off of that, she is by default tough, but in her small but very telling moments in the Naruto Storm series, we are shown just how strong she is literally. A small excerpt of Sasori's introduction into the Akatsuki, where she is in the hidden sand wandering about and he comes across Konan, who wants to recruit him into the Akatsuki. He initially declines, threatening to turn her into one of of his dolls, in which Konan insists in his participation as a member, which creates a fight. Sasori loses the exchange and decides to join her cause. What's also important to add is her monotone demeanor. She wasn't winded out or heavily tired. You could tell it was a swift victory that took very minimal effort. Also, in her small exchange with Jiraiya when he invaded the Hidden Rain, he did comment on her growing into a formidable shinobi. That's a legendary sounding saying that, even though it was short, if the fight dragged out, it could have been bloody on both sides. So when we analyze her fight against Tobi, this wasn't an impending death, but a clash of titans. For starters, she infused her chakra papers into the ocean, creating 600 billion paper bombs going off for 10 minutes straight, combating Tobi's Kamui ability, which can show her immense intelligence that damn near rivals Batman in prep time abilities. The only reason Tobi survived this monstrous attack was by using the Izanagi, a technique of the Sharingan combined with Hashirama Senju cells that can change the reality of the user to his favor. In return, that Sharingan will forever go blind, being only a last resort for life and death situations. But honestly, a plot cheat code created by Kishimoto. In any real instance, Tobi would have been done for, and Amegakure would have been just fine.
It's funny!
Even though officially Konan became the de facto leader of the Hidden Rain after Nagato's death, she has always worked for the betterment of the Hidden Rain village. As we went over before, due to the internal struggle of seeing the organization she helped build become something far worse entirely, Konan focused more on creating stability in the Hidden Rain village over sealing tailed beasts or participating in Akatsuki missions. She helped the people see Nagato as the god Pain, believing that through knowing pain, the world can come to true peace. And she took over as the public face for Amegakure, working with other villages diplomatically and being the main spokesperson for this village, while trying her best to maintain the illusion of stability, especially since everyone believed Hanzo was still the official leader of Amegakure, which is why Pain is the unseen god of this village, while Konan is the angel of Amegakure, the messenger enacting the will of God, making this village arrangement different compared to most villages that just have either one Kage or leader that handles all internal and external affairs. But from here, Konan kind of resembles a vice president position instead of a diplomat, because the assumed authority is if Pain is gone, then Konan is the one instantly in charge. And in the anime only Chunin exam arc, we see Konan embody this role perfectly. Konoha and the other major hidden villages are scheduling the Chunin exams once more, mainly to improve relations between villages, as it is a great way to network with other village shinobi. For the Hidden Rain, they are put into a precarious spot because Hanzo's secret death would cause discourse. Reluctance to join the Chunin exams could spark suspicion, blowing the cover over Nagato's rule in peace. Also, this is a great chance for the Hidden Rain to rebuild its reputation as a village through the Chunin exam, especially considering their history. So she impersonated Hanzo receiving the invitation for the Chunin exams from Kakashi, while also sending Genin to the exam, which can seem clever, but this actually can show just how lowly viewed the Hidden Rain actually is. Because if A or Tsunade was missing and other village representatives came, they would be more suspicious if that leader was actually being impersonated. Like during the original Chunin exams when Orochimaru impersonated the Kazekage, and Lord Third knew something wasn't right. On the surface, it may seem very minimal, but in light of her being a part of a major criminal organization, for her to be this devoted to Amegakure speaks volumes. Because Konan is a Konoichi who came from the tragedy of Amegakure, fully understands the pain her people endured, and is still trying to find her way to fight. She is strong enough to go toe-to-toe with any ninja, including Tobi, and she is clearly dead set on making sure Amegakure is a peaceful era. At the end of the day, Konan is a person who was born straight into the tragedy of the ninja world. She observed the philosophies of Jiraiya, Nagato, Yahiko, and Naruto, understood fully what would be the right mindset to bring the current shinobi world into an era of peace. Her jutsu style is so unique it could potentially be a KK Genkai, while also being so strong that it's theoretically unbeatable, not to mention her incredible prep time intelligence. Even though being a part of the Akatsuki, she found a way to be so devoted to Amegakure that she is known as the messenger angel by her people. What makes Konan one of the most underrated Akatsuki members isn't her power, thought-provoking philosophies, or her role as a leader, but that she witnessed the horror of the shinobi world, observed the people on both sides, and still chose peace in the brutal world she was born into. Simply put, Konan is a god-tier Naruto character that Kishimoto set up but ruined her instead. But that's what I think. If you think differently, the same, or want to add more, comment down below right after you leave a like and subscribe. Once again, my name is AOI-KUN, and this was my synopsis.